Alright everybody, welcome back. Today we are talking about animal training and animal taming in Dwarf Fortress. These are actually two very different things, although they are related, and the interesting thing is that it changes pretty distinctly from patch to patch, so depending on which version of the game you're playing, all of this is going to be wrong. But I'm going to try to do like broad strokes. I'm going to try to describe the general gist of both animal training and animal taming, and these are both very valuable. They can make a big difference in your fortress. I'm going to talk about the latest Steam version, but I'm also going to talk about earlier versions going back as far as 2014 because there are major changes. So animal taming, in general, this is specifically where wild animals caught in cage traps and then transferred in cages, they become part of your fortress, they become a caged animal. Now, if you played the game, you know that you can trade caged animals, so it becomes a commodity at that point. But it is still a wild animal, which has limited use because it's going to go crazy as soon as it's out of the cage. Taming is specifically a 6 or 10 or 12, I haven't counted, and it depends on the version. There are about a dozen levels of how much the animal trusts and is domesticated, works with people. And I have to be careful because domesticated, tamed, stray, these are all actually terms in the game code. And so you have to be specific about what you're talking about. But so that's taming. Taming is you have a wild animal caught in a cage, it becomes part of your stockpile. You specifically, it involves a zone and it involves assigning work. We're going to get into that. Basically, the dwarves will take it out of its cage. They will work with it a little bit. They'll sacrifice some food. They'll use food for the training. In this case, again, so many of these words have English definitions and then they have Dwarf Fortress definitions. Just bear with me. So training is different than taming in Dwarf Fortress, but for the purposes of taming, I'll try to say taming. So it costs a little bit of meat. A dwarf takes the creature out to a pasture, formerly called a kennel. If you're playing an older version, it's a kennel. No, wait, shit, that's for training animals. Oh, I'm already fucking this up. Animals, of course, like any cage thing that doesn't like you, has a chance to break free. Now, if you turn on Fast Dwarf and DF Hack, the animal has a lot less chance to react because you're Naruto teleporting them. You know, you're teleporting them to the pasture, to the training area, depending on what your version, it's called different things. You're teleporting them there. You're feeding them meat at lightning speed and then putting them back in their cage with another teleport. So animals tend not to escape. If you cheat in that way, feel free. That's how I managed to tame my 2 giant boars. So a giant animal is about 10 times the size of a normal animal. So a giant boar is like almost a kaiju. It's just a massive, massive animal. But by teleporting them and training them, we have managed to get them to, what is it called? To stray, which is the next level. It goes wild, stray, and then there's like 10 levels of domestication, like poorly, and again, they use trained even though this is taming. They say like poorly trained, excellently trained, superbly trained, masterfully trained, and then like domesticated is the final level where the animal can't even remember how to be wild. Yeah, again, apologies, this video is going to be trash because you have to use the English against the Dwarf Fortress, and they refer to different things, but so we're just talking about taming right now. Any wild animal goes into a cage. You can assign it a trainer, and you can assign a zone for that activity to happen in, and occasionally when that trainer is free, they will grab the animal, bring it to the zone, increase its domestication level, and put it back. Something interesting I read is apparently if animals that are on their way to being domesticated, if they have a baby, it will be a higher domestication level, which makes sense. That's like real life. Like the parents teach the children to trust the dwarves. So basically, it kind of works like real life. You keep them alive, you keep them fed, you interact with them positively, they get tamer and tamer and tamer. All right, that's taming. Now let's talk about specifically what is referred to as animal training, closely related, but is a more specific thing, and especially depending on what version of Dwarf Fortress you're in. So training now, as I understand it, this is different, this is more specific than, so you can tame things, return them to their cages, sell them. The elves or whoever, they'll like, you know, a very domesticated giant sparrow, for example, which is also something we caught in the live stream, so feel free to check that out. They'll like one that's tame, very tame, and they'll pay more for it, but for actual fortress defense, you want training. This is where you go to your list of units and you go to others, which includes pets and animals. There will be certain animals that have like toggle icons next to them, and it'll say like you can geld them if you don't want them to breed anymore. And then you can train them as war dogs or hunting dogs. And training generally applies to dogs, especially in earlier versions, but with newer versions, many dog-like creatures can also be trained to operate according to the war dog or hunting dog AI, which is where the dwarves will take them out hunting or take them out as part of a squad, or even war dogs can be stationed, you know, in places, but the hunting dog basically tries to stealth in and sneak attack prey animals, and then the war dog it will specifically just go berserk on anything that is toggled as an enemy, as a target. And so that is something specific where you will have to go into the pets/others tab and mark them for training by a specific dwarf, and then that dwarf will work one-on-one with the animal and teach them the hunting or wardog AI. And you can't do this to everything. So I have giant wild boars and giant sparrows that I'm working on taming. That's just bringing them to the pasture, give them a little bit of food. They like dwarves better. Don't lose them before they get back in the cage. The dog work AI is specifically for like quadrupeds of a certain mind level that is dog-like, and it depends on what version you're using. One other neat thing about taming is you can tame pretty much anything that's not, you know, human dwarven level sentience, and it will just wander around nicely in your any animal areas and just be a chill thing, which I'm really looking forward to for these these kaiju-sized warthogs and sparrows I've got trapped. But yeah, so taming is basically increasing the value, getting animals to a point where they can participate in your fortress, you know, which is to say wander around and find food, solicit food, and maybe fight invaders, you know, if there's violence. Training is basically getting dog-like animals qualified to use the defensive or stealth hunting AI of war dogs and hunting dogs specifically. If you look this up on your own, if you do your own research, you will find confusing things because the documentation of recent changes is actually kind of poor. So you'll find articles from like Dwarf Fortress 2014. And for example, back then, if you're still playing that version, the animal training area is called a kennels. And now I believe the one-to-one, what it changed into is just called animal training zone, which makes more sense because, you know, there's kennels is kind of just for dogs. But so nowadays it's called animal training zone. It used to be called kennels. If you set that up, you can also train vermin with a vermin catcher's workshop, but I've never gotten into that. I'm not sure what the point is. It may be like an even less useful, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think it may be an even less useful version of general taming where you have a creature in a trap and it is nice and friendly to people and it sells to the trader for more value because it's like an exotic pet. If you know anything else vermin can do, please leave it in the comments, but basically that's it. You create a animal training zone. A pasture, I believe in the recent versions, can also be used in a pinch. Animal trainers can also train in the pasture, I believe. But I just set up an animal training zone as well, like on top of the pasture just to be safe. And then assign animals you want to train to a trainer and it'll work itself out. You'll have, if it's a dog-like creature and you assign it, have the option and assign it specifically with either, in the recent versions, I believe it's a whistle or like a bow and arrow or something, but there's two symbols for like war dogs and bow and arrow, or hunting dogs rather. You just toggle those specifically, otherwise just pick each animal, assign it for animal training, assign it to a trainer, and that dwarf's gonna do its best, and if the animal is hunting or war dog material, it will advance in those ways and be used for those jobs, be eligible for those jobs, and if you just tame it, it'll go up in value. It will not attack, and it'll also, you know, be passive defense basically, because if you're taming all the animals, especially if they're giant animals, and then a goblin invasion comes in and starts killing everything, they're gonna make those giant animals mad, and they're gonna be passive defense just because they're gonna get mad and attack enemies. I think that's all I have for this week, guys. I'm working on another mega compilation. Thank you guys so much. The last mega compilation has gotten some interest, and I think I've got like 8 hours total of Dwarf Fortress Explained Poorly content, even. Not to even count the live streams. So I'm gonna do those semi-regularly, do big compilations so people can, you know, get through the whole workday if they can stand my voice for that long, you know. In the meantime, I'll be doing content like this, and thank you all for joining me. I'll catch you all in the next one. Feel free to like and subscribe, ring the bell, yada yada. Thank you for being here. Goodbye.